everyone, Leilani Joy here, and welcome to another episode of the Paint Along, the show where you can paint along with me in real time while I answer your art and not so art related questions. I am very excited to be back today. It's been a while since I've painted along with you guys, and that's because I have some crazy exciting projects in the works, and I was going to film a paint along earlier this week, but I came down with a really bad sore throat and I couldn't even talk, so I just sat silently crying and painting all by myself. But I'm back and I'm feeling better than ever, and I'm here to punish some new artwork today. So get some artwork, get some homework, get some knitting, get your life book assignment, get your homework for my class or your homework for school. Well, I don't know. Maybe you guys don't have homework for school because, like, school's out for summer now, right? Alice Cooper. Anyway, let's get started. I'm going to be multitasking a little bit today because I've got a lot of stuff on the slab, and I recently finished this piece, which I entitled Daughter of Woman for the Bad Apple Artist Collective. Our theme this month was apple, and I was like, I don't know, this is just a very iconic imagery that jumped to my mind. This was inspired by René Magritte's Son of Man, and so I wanted to pay homage to that and kind of put my own spin on this. Anyways, this painting has sold, and before I ship her off to her new forever home, I need to do a final varnish on her, so I thought I'd chat with you guys while I varnish this piece, and then I'm also going to show you a very sneak peek at all the other work that I've been working on. I am very excited to tell you guys that I've been invited to be in a Mattel officially licensed show at Gallery 1988 in LA, and I'm doing some Barbie themed work for the show, and I'm so stoked about it, and I'm really excited. I want to do a good job, so I'm going to be working on one of those pieces with you guys today. So let's get started. Okay, we've got everything we need to finish the varnishing process of this little lady here. And I know some of you guys have asked me about varnishing before, and I don't, you know what, I think I filmed a tutorial for it and I never actually put it together. And hopefully, I don't know, I still have the clips somewhere. But anyways, today I thought I'd start us off with kind of a brief demo. And I'm not going to go too in depth with this because I've already done part of the process, but we could talk a little bit more about it later. But basically, when you're doing, so I'm referring to acrylic paintings here. It's similar with oil, but you might want to look up all the specifics if you're working with oil or something else. So basically there's two steps to varnishing your final painting here. And you're going to need, to start off with, I've already done the step that's called the isolation coat. And basically, an isolation coat just means a protective clear coat between your painting and your varnish. So in this case, I like to use, this is the golden soft gel, and you can mix this with a little bit of water. Make sure that you don't put too much water. I think this, okay, it doesn't say on here, but I'm fairly certain that it's 2 parts gel to 1 part water. So do remember that you don't get it too thin. But to get it a little bit thinner is nice, so it goes on evenly and you don't get too much brush strokes. So I did do this first, and it went on pretty even. You probably can't really even see it, which is nice. And I did this yesterday, so I let this dry for 24 hours. And basically, the reason that you would do this is so that if for whatever reason in the far future, when you're dead and your art is super famous and worth money, and they need to clean the painting or they want to replace the varnish because it yellowed or whatever, they can remove the varnish but not take off the paint of your painting. And that's because the isolation coat will be in between your painting and your varnish. So it's just an added layer of protection. There is some debate about whether or not you need to varnish acrylic painting. Some people don't do it. I think it's a professional step and it's nice to keep the painting extra protected. But to be honest with you, it is my least favorite part of painting. I hate doing it. It's frightening. There is a lot of room for error, and I'm still looking for that perfect process because I have had some varnish things go wrong, which most artists have. And while I don't really mind, I mean, I've had pretty good success with isolation coats using the water and gloss gel. I still find that it's a little bit textured and a little bit brush strokey. And since I like to keep my paintings very flat and I don't use brush strokes, I don't like there to be brush strokes in my isolation coat either. And I definitely don't like it in the varnish. So I'm still perfecting it. I'm considering trying a process in which you can spray your isolation coat on, but you need like what's the word? An airbrush or some kind of spray gun. And I think I might invest in that at some point so I can get a really nice even coat. Anyways, moving on. So once you have your isolation coat, it's dry, then you're going to apply varnish. And so far, this is my favorite varnish because it seems to be the most idiot-proof. And I'm not even joking. I want the easiest possible, least likely to screw up varnish process. And this is called Gamvar, and it's made by Gamblin. There you go. You can see, get a better look at it now. And I really like this stuff because, as you can see, it's like the consistency of water, so it goes on really, really evenly, and I really don't have to worry too much about getting strokes. Of course, now I filled it with bubbles, so that was probably a bad idea. Don't do that. Don't shake it like I just did. Hey, we're learning something today. And I'll show you the technique to put this on, which is actually really easy. So yeah, so far this is my favorite. They do sell, this is the picture varnish. I think they sell a satin as well, but I haven't tried the satin yet because I like the gloss because it really enhances my colors and keeps them really bright and intense. So yeah, so far this has been my favorite to use. I've tried a lot of different ones with a lot of pain and suffering, and so far this has been my favorite. So let's put this on here and we'll see how this goes. So I also have a little plastic lid tray that I'm going to pour my varnish into, and I also have a bristly wide varnish brush, and this one's actually brand new. There we go. And before I start doing it with the varnish, I kind of like to make sure there's no bristles that are going to fall out into my varnish. Oh, there's one. Oh, there's a bunch. Ah, that's what I get for buying a cheap ass brush. But usually it's not too big of a deal. I just kind of make sure I get them all out. And then, so I'm going to demonstrate this before I start doing it. Then I'm going to put some varnish on there, and you're going to kind of use like a back and forth sort of scrubbing motion with this. I watched a tutorial. I know that kind of seems crazy. I know it seems more like you want to do kind of like a wax on, wax off thing, but apparently this kind of gets it into all the nooks and crannies a little bit better, and I have found that that works the best for me. So we're gonna go ahead, and we're probably not gonna need too much. I'm gonna pour, hopefully it's not too bubbly since I just shook it up. Pour a little bit of this into my tray. Okay, it's going everywhere. All right. And then I'm going to get this on my brush, and you don't need to saturate it too much. I usually maybe go a third of the way up the brush, if that really soaked it up. Okay, and on a small piece like this, it's actually pretty easy and fast. So just do this quickly, be a little bit aggressive. You want to have a good light source. Let's put my other light on here. While you're doing this, so you can make sure that you don't miss any spots. So tilt it quickly. Luckily, unlike some varnishes, you don't have to be super fast, but I do find that this goes better if you're pretty quick about it. So that's all I'm doing, kind of going every which way here. And with the Gamblin picture varnish, you don't panic if you see if you see some bubbles. That's totally normal and fine. Those are going to go away on their own. Once this stuff starts to dry, the bubbles will go away. So I know that looks a little bit scary at first because you're gonna be like, oh my god, it's covered in bubbles, but it's actually fine. I got a little heavy-handed at the top there, so I'm just gonna kind of even it out. And this stuff is pretty self-evening as well, so that's kind of nice. I just noticed that my desk is probably slightly tilted, so it's puddling a little bit more towards the top. Okay. That's looking pretty good. Yeah. It's gonna give it a nice shiny coat. Okay, now if you can see this, I'm not sure if you can. Let's see. Oh yeah, look how gorgeous and reflective that is. We can kind of tell that it's gone on evenly. Perfect, perfect. You want to just make sure that there's no like weird dry spots. And you know, after about 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes, if you notice there is a spot that's a little bit more dry, don't panic, but don't touch it. You can do another coat, and this stuff is also very forgiving. When you do a second coat, it will cover up that dry area and even it out. So the best thing to do with varnish is, if you make a mistake, just to do another coat once this one is fully dry. And this stuff takes about 24 hours or so, and I still handle it a little bit carefully even after that. So another tip here is you absolutely want to scan your painting before you do any of this. So before you put your isolation coat and varnish on, you want to make sure you get a nice clean scan, because now that you guys can see how super gloss this is, it's not going to scan as well. It's going to get reflective light and stuff on it, and that's just a pain to try and clean up if you're going to make prints and stuff. And okay, so finally that's done, and I'm gonna drop my brush in some water so I don't ruin it forever. Oh, what the oh my god. Okay, I'm a tard. I think this lid was like from soup or something. Oh my god, it totally has a hole in it. Did you guys even notice this? I freaking leaked varnish all over my desk. Welcome to the Leilani studio of idiot-proof varnishing. Don't use a lid that has a hole in it. Oh my god. Okay. I will clean this mess up in just one moment. But in the meantime, we're going to take our little painting away and put it somewhere level, number one, so that the varnish is going to dry level. You don't want it tilted up or down as little as possible. And if you have like a little box lid or something, that's kind of nice to kind of protect it, to keep dust out of it. I have like a little wooden tray thing that I put over the top of my painting, and that helps keep dust from falling in it while it's drying. All right, well, I'm going to clean up this epic mess and all this varnish that I just wasted, and then we'll be back to start on our next project and answer some questions. All right, well, I got my varnish spill mess cleaned up, and now I'm ready to continue to my next project we're working on today, and that is, are you guys ready for this? This is my Barbie tribute piece that I have in progress. Ta-da! And this is my tribute to one of my favorite Barbies that I had as a young lass, and it was called Totally Hair Barbie, and she had super long hair that you could style, and she came with a comb and all these awesome accessories and this psychedelic outfit, and it's just very iconic Barbie, and I'm just so stoked that I get to do this for real. Anyways, although my look today could not be less Barbie. I don't really know what's going on with my juxtaposition today. I don't know if you guys have been at home commenting about my gray lipstick. Am I pulling this off? I'm not sure. I got it as like a free sample, and I'm like, I'm not really ready to wear it out in public yet, but I'm like, I'll try it with you guys on the paint along and see what you guys think, because I feel like it's kind of cool. I'm not really sure if it's a little too dead. I don't know. Anyways, so Barbie, happy the day I'm not wearing pink or red lipstick. Anyways, I have started this piece, and I'm excited to share that I'm kind of like refining my personal process a little bit, and I am kind of obsessed with like clean graphic shapes in paint. And I have found that it's often very difficult to achieve this using a brush technique. So I'm going more and more in depth with Frisket, with masking, and using acrylic spray paint. And you guys know I've used this on quite a few pieces I've done before, but this is definitely the most intricate I've gotten with it. And this is the where this piece is now. And all of this so far has been done in using a series of Frisket masks, which is a protective film that you can cut out and put down on your board. and then I've done spray painting over that. So it's taken me quite a bit of time, but I am loving the results. And then I can simply paint on top of this and build layers on top of a nice, clean, flat graphic. This is, you know, this cuts some of my pain and suffering, but it's also a very challenging process as well. I cut out a frisket mask for this comb right here, and it was crazy. I have these little tiny scissors, these little tiny very sharp scissors, and I actually cut out the shape, and actually I cut out the inverse of the shape and sprayed it. So this is kind of like where I'm going with my process a little bit, and it's really exciting for me because I love graphics and I love creating design silhouettes, and this is really a great way for me to incorporate that with traditional acrylic painting. So spiel over. I'll talk more about that process if you guys have questions about it. But yeah, it's officially the Leilani Joy process, so don't copy me. I'm copywritten, don't copy me. Just kidding. Yeah. Hey, if you can find tools that help your process, go for it. You know, they make this stuff for artists to explore and find new ways of creating a process that works for them. So I have kept my drawing taped to my board and been very careful not to disturb it too much so that I can go back in and transfer, and everything is still going to line up. So I'm going to transfer her facial features and this pattern I've created on her dress, and I'm going to be using a couple of different cerals today. I have a graphite ceral and I have a white ceral, and I like to use these a little bit interchangeably now because the white ceral, I love the white ceral because it comes off super easy. You can take a little wet like a rag or something and just wipe it off. It really keeps your canvas really clean. And I like the graphite ceral when I have more detailed areas that are going to be painted dark. But my only gripe with this stuff is if you like rest your elbow or if you touch anywhere else on your painting, you get like a dirty smear, and it's really, really hard to take this stuff off. You can get a very dirty look. So I'm going to be using these in combination today in my transfer. And when I'm using the graphite ceral, I'm going to protect some areas with these little strips of paper I've created here. That way I can rest my arm down if I'm drawing a certain area and it's not going to get on my painting. So there you go. There's a few tips and tricks for using those. And while I get started with my transferring, we are going to jump to some questions. So I'm going to start with my YouTube questions today, and we will get to transferring. So I'm gonna make sure my drawing is right where it's supposed to be. And then I've got my pen here. So my first question today comes from my YouTube comments, and the question is from Anthony C. I know your opinion on art school. If you don't learn well in a classroom environment like me, do you still recommend it? That's a great question, Anthony. I have a kind of in-depth write-up about this on my blog, artnouveau.com. I think it might be on my FAQ page, actually. But your question is a little more specific even. But the answer really depends, I think, on what your goals are and what it is you want to do with your art. I don't know exactly what your level is or what you plan to pursue. But the truth of the matter is, and I've kind of said this before, and I say this to my Art Nouveau U students, is do you feel that you can compete with professionals with only self-training? And I kind of feel that art is, I like to use this analogy like ballet or learning an instrument, okay? Obviously, practicing is a huge part of it, but if you're practicing the wrong technique over and over again, you're not actually going to improve, if that makes sense. So if you're self-teaching yourself to copy from other artists or just try to like copy from photos, you might not be using the best foundations and the best techniques to create strong portfolio pieces, if that makes sense. So people can definitely be successful being completely self-taught. But my personal opinion on that is that number one, it's rare. And number two, I since I come from an art school environment, and this is not to sound pretentious in any way, it's just kind of something that's been ingrained in me through going through art formal education, is that I can usually spot someone that hasn't gone to art school. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but sometimes less so than their drawing technique or even their painting technique. It's usually something I notice in their design and composition and the way they approach their subject matters and where they place them on the page and how they organize elements in a design type way. There's a lot of things that you can learn from art school, from classical art, and certain technical approaches to good design that you can't necessarily learn just from copying reference material, if that makes sense. But to be a little bit more specific, I think there is some really great alternatives out there if you're not the type of person who likes to be in a stuffy classroom for 6 hours, 7 hours a day. I totally get that. It's hard. I always kind of liked school, and I still found it very hard. So if you're not the type of person that likes that structure of a learning environment, I can definitely relate. But if you are very serious about becoming professional, I would really encourage you to seek out, number one, there's some great online resources. I offer my class, the Art School Express, which is kind of like a crash course art school for beginners or people that might be interested in pursuing art school, and you can do it completely at your own pace. I mean, I'm kind of plugging my own thing, but there are other alternatives to that as well. There's lynda.com, which has got art tutorials. There's the Gnomon Workshop, which is if you're kind of into more concept or fantasy art. So there's a lot of places to learn online. However, I will warn that if you want to go purely the online self-teaching route or learning at your own pace, you've got to be pretty self-disciplined and a self-starter and be willing to make deadlines for yourself, because it's really easy to be like, oh, I'm going to watch a video. I'll do it later. I'll do it later. So I think sometimes that can be hard too. So there's always, if you have a class that you're paying a lot of money for, you're going to show up. So sometimes it's harder when a online class is so flexible and you're like, well, I'll just get to it when I get to it. If you truly want to be a professional artist, you guys, I'm not going to lie, it is pure dedication. Like there's some, obviously, I don't even know about talent. Like I said, I'm not sure if I'm a big believer in talent. I'm more a believer in refining your skills and just putting a lot of time and effort into improving your craft. But I would say that 99% of being a professional, being a professional artist is your determination, your tenacity, and your drive. Because I spend literally, lately I've been preparing for this show, and I have been painting for, somewhere around 12 to 15 hours a day. I'm not even kidding. A lot of hours. And I love what I do. I'm feeling a little bit on the edge of burnout, but I keep pushing through because I'm passionate and I'm driven. So if that's not you, that's okay too. There's no reason that you can't have a day job and do freelance on the side and still do some professional art on the side. But to be honest with you, doing it 100% only, it's hard. It's really hard work, and you have to be very dedicated to it. So Anthony, my short answer is you've got to be real with yourself and decide what your goals are, decide what you want to do. If you're like, I want to be in concept art and film, then you need to look at ArtStation, you need to see what professionals are doing, and you need to figure out the best way for you to reach that level. Whether it be online training, whether it be workshops, mentorships, or formal art school. And you're going to have to decide how dedicated you are to reaching that goal. So yeah, let me know what you decide to do. I would be interested to know where your path takes you, because when I was finishing at junior college and high school, there was not as many options as there are nowadays, which I think is very exciting. Nowadays, I sound like an old granny lady, but they didn't like have like an art school alternative online. They have some, you know, like some of those like kind of like Phoenix schools or like fast tracks. But even those were quite expensive, and they weren't always known for having the best art training programs. But yeah, so nowadays there's so many different ways of getting there, and you don't necessarily have to spend $100,000 on an art school. So yeah, so just kind of assess yourself. Another thing, sorry, I'm kind of going on a tangent, but this would be something really great for you, possibly if you're not really sure. Then consider going to an open like portfolio review. I know the Academy of Art, they travel around and they go to colleges and different places, and you can take your portfolio there and get some honest opinions. I mean, more than likely they will try to sell you, of course, on going to art school, but it might be nice to get some professional opinions, or maybe take a class even at your local community college and have an art professor there kind of give you their 2 cents. Again, if you want to take my online class, I'll be as real as you want. Like I teeter on like being kind. I really like to be supportive. I see potential in all of my students. I honestly do. But if you're really like the type of student who's like, tell me like it is, I really want to get better and I want to hear the hard truth, like let me know. And I will be as honest and real as I can be. For most people, I feel like that's not really necessary to be like, okay, drive it home really hard, because I think most of us are aware of our weaknesses. So I try to be encouraging and more positive about, you know, smaller steps on improving. But it's all up to you. And as a student, you know, you can kind of guide me on that as well. Okay, so that's a great question, and I hope that kind of answered it for you. Okay, so hopefully this transfer lined up like I hope it did. Kind of winged it here, but all right, time for the big reveal. So as you can see, I had some papers down here to protect my drawing or my painting from getting too messy and smeary, which seems to work out pretty good. And it looks like everything lined up where it's supposed to, which is always so nice. Oh, look at that. You can kind of see it already. That's cool. Okay, she's coming along. All right. Okay, so now we're going to start putting some paint on here, which should be pretty exciting. So her dress here, so I have some little, these were my little color comp mock-ups that I made in Photoshop. So just as a little refresher course here about my process is I usually do a little photo bash comp in Photoshop before I start, which is this right here, which I kind of pasted some elements together and cut out some really rough kind of shapes and splashed in some line work, and that kind of created this. And then from there I did a drawing. So then I did this refined drawing where I actually designed everything out. I designed my character and the shape of the hair and everything, and this patterning here. And then I'm going to kind of use this as a little bit of a color comp, color map. Obviously this changed a little bit from the thumbnail, but that's the general idea. So I always kind of like to know where I'm going in advance when I start something like this. Okay, so let's mix up some paint and then we'll take some more questions. Okay, so for the next stage of my piece, I've created a little paint by number for myself. And in Photoshop, I just kind of wanted to plan out this psychedelic pattern that she has on her dress. Because I was going to just wing this, but honestly, you know, it's kind of, so I am referencing like the real dress that Barbie had, Totally Hair Barbie had. And it's one of those things, like, it looks really simple, but it's actually not. Like, I wanted to be kind of careful to keep these colors balanced. Like, there was one little pop of green and like a little bit of blue. So I did plot this out beforehand, just so I didn't start just kind of randomly painting in the shapes and being like, wait, that does not feel like the pattern. So that's how I do's it. And I've got a couple of versions here so I can kind of see my line work. And so I'm going to literally do this kind of like a paint by number. And I've mixed up some light pink for myself to start with the light pink areas. And then we'll go from there. Okay, guys, you never knew. You never knew being an artist was so easy. You just have to make your very own paint by number. Okay, so my next question comes from Jennifer. Hello, Jennifer. Well, my question is, do you have any medium that you can't work with? For example, I can't work with charcoal pencils because the sound makes me feel sick, and same goes for the smell of liquid ink. Oh, really? P.S. You're a huge inspiration for me, and every time I don't feel any motivation to draw, I come and watch your channel for some artsy spirit. Love from Sweden. Oh, thank you, Jennifer. It's so lovely to hear from you all the way from Sweden. I don't know. That's one of my favorite things. Like, the farther away you guys are, like, the cooler it is to me. Like, that we can all connect with each other, like, through the magic of the internet. Oh, man, that's really interesting. I'm sorry. I actually, you know what? I know what you mean about charcoal, though. Like, I don't even want to talk about it too much because you probably, like, will get all cringy. But, like, a charcoal, if you guys have ever used charcoal, it has kind of, like, a weird texture. It's very chalky. It's kind of like that, like, chalk, nails on a chalkboard kind of feel. Like, charcoal is not one of my favorites either. I didn't really have, like, a visceral reaction, so to speak, but it always would, like, when there was like a huge room of like 30 students, like, all using charcoal at once and you're all breathing it in, it's like, I swear, sometimes I thought I had the black lung. I coughed and like black stuff come out of my mouth. And I'm like, this can't be healthy for people to be breathing this. So yeah, that was never one of my favorites either. The reason why they have you work with that in art school is just because it's real easy to work with. It's easy to kind of erase, and you can make lines really easily without much pressure, and you can do quick studies and live drawing with it. So it kind of makes sense, but it's kind of gross, like, for real. I'm with you on that one. I personally, I don't know if I have never really felt like sick per se, but oils, that's why I'm really curious to try maybe aqua oils if I ever do venture back into oils, because the smell of oils did get to me for a while, especially if I'm working in, because I kind of work in like a small little corner of my studio here, and without like plenty of ventilation, that can definitely make you sick. And actually, some of the solvents, or like, you know, turpentine or terpenoid, that smell, I hate that smell. It's like freaking formaldehyde or something. And the terpenoid is supposed to be safer and better than turpentine, but I think that stuff still smells god awful and it's enough to knock you over. So, yeah, I feel that. This is weird. I always thought that gouache kind of had a funny smell. Have you guys ever noticed? I don't know. Maybe it's old. It almost just like this. It's hard to describe it. I don't know. It definitely has its own smell. On a positive note, I like the smell of some watercolors. I have one that's, I think it's Rose Tyrene, and it's like a rose madder, I think it is. And that actually uses like some kind of rose oil or something. I don't know. It smells super good though. Okay, moving right along to my Instagram questions, because I have a ton of questions over here. And my first question comes from Daniel M. Ever thought of coming to visit Belize as a vacation? Oh, are you from Belize? Do you live in Belize? That's really cool. I have actually. It was one of the destinations that Brian and I considered for our honeymoon. And I forget. I don't know, we ended up getting a really good deal to go to the Virgin Islands, but Belize was actually up there with some of our considerations. So yes, I am considering it. If you live there or if you've been, shoot some suggestions to me. I'd love to hear from someone who is familiar with it. Yeah, because I've never been, and It looks amazing though. I've seen some photos and I'm like, wow, it's gorgeous. So yeah, maybe someday. Next I have a question from Ava Nicole. Have you made any business mistakes as an artist that you regret, and how would you do it differently now? Oh wow, that's a great question. Definitely. The one that immediately jumps to mind is something I learned very early on. I was still in school actually, and I started to get, when you're in school, you get approached by sometimes some other student projects, or they're looking to hire like student illustrators for like a bargain price. And I was like, well, it would be good experience maybe to do this. I think it was some advertising. So we had advertising major at the Art Academy. And so they contacted me and they're like, oh, we have a project and we need to hire an illustrator. And so I didn't put together any kind of contract or anything. And the concept seems simple enough. And about a couple of days into it, I started to realize that I was in big trouble. I did exactly, in my defense, I did exactly as they described. They wanted like a hand that was like holding the earth and had plants and stuff coming out of it. I actually worked really hard on it. I put a full day of work into it. I did a mixed media piece. It was quite nice, I thought. And they were like, no, can you do a little more like this? Can you do a little bit more like that? And they paid me $100, and I went through almost 2 weeks of revisions with these people. And it was one of the most, definitely, probably the most frustrating job I've ever done. And I was like, you know what? Why didn't I charge per revision? And that was something that I learned really quickly is, many clients, not all, want the most amount of work for the least amount of money. And that can really be frustrating if you don't take the initiative to protect yourself. So as soon as that was over, I was like, okay, I need to be very specific about what's included with my fee. I need to have a contract. I need to figure out my hourly rate. And so that was the very next thing that I did before I ever took another job. And you know what? This was not something they taught you in school, which I think is shameful, to be honest, that this is not something they covered. Because I didn't know. I was just like, okay, I'm getting paid $100 sounds good, but not for freaking 50 hours of work. It's kind of ridiculous. So yeah, that was something early I learned. Of course, I've sometimes, my career path has been extremely experimental, as you guys know, and there's things that I thought would go somewhere and didn't. There's things I've spent time on that didn't end up being a lucrative idea. There's paintings I've done that I'm like, oh, I'm really excited about this, and they don't end up being a good seller, or they don't sell at all, or the prints don't do very well. So I mean, it's always a learning process, but certainly I've learned a lot along the way, especially with working with clients. And I have on my FAQ page, if you guys are curious, I have my sample contract that I drafted and that I use, and I haven't had any trouble with it. Basically, you just want to make sure that you cover all your bases and make sure that you're going to be covered for your time. If you want to have them put down a refundable deposit, I highly recommend that, just in case for whatever reason that client and you don't work well together and you say, I'm not going to complete this project, but for my time, for the amount of time I've spent. And do remember, and I think clients need to remember this, that reading emails, that talking on the phone, that discussing the project, that's your time too, and your time is valuable, so keep that in mind. And I did do a few other very early commission jobs. I'll keep this short, but I also learned that I had no interest in doing pet portraits after I did one pet portrait, and the client was very particular about her pet, and I'm like, I'm sorry. I did it as close to the photo as I could, and yeah, so that was a struggle. So learn what you will and won't do and what your time is worth. And I do have a blog about how you can calculate your hourly rate, and make sure you're getting paid what you're worth. And just because someone waves money in your face, remember to calculate how much time that project is going to take, because sometimes you're like, oh, $1,000, that sounds great, and then you realize that it's a 120-page illustrated book, and there's no way that that's going to cover a year or two of work. So just keep that in mind too. Okay, my next question comes from Caged Nephilim. How do you get your paints to blend so smoothly? When I paint with acrylic, it always leaves the brush strokes, and I could never achieve the smooth, almost digital look you get. Love your work. Thanks. That's a great question. It's something I struggle with myself because it's actually rather difficult. I found that the key is not working too thick, for one thing. So I always get just a little bit of water. I get enough so that it flows. And you might consider working with soft body acrylics, or you may enjoy fluid acrylics. So sometimes the heavy body, which is like this, is called heavy body. It's really, really thick, and it's more intended for doing impasto or kind of more thicker brush strokier. Is that a word? Let's add that to the artist dictionary. Brush strokier kinds of work. So I find that if I usually I like the soft bodies because they're a little bit easier to smear around. And I also, so I paint thin, and then I do quite a few layers. So if you can see, not sure if you can see this. I don't want to mess up my system here too much. But this is like a first layer that I'm doing, and it's still a little bit streaky. It's not exactly where I want it on the first pass, but I don't want to do it too thick because then I start getting some weird textures and brush strokes. So if I do a couple of thin layers, and you can do them even kind of in opposite directions. So, you know, do one pass where you're stroking one pass where you're stroking vertically, and then one pass where you're stroking horizontally, and that'll give you a more even kind of look. It's tricky. It's definitely something I'm always trying to master. Occasionally I get I mean, if you guys look at my work up close, it's not completely without brush strokes. I have seen some artists that do it better than I do, and I'm like, dang, how do they get that so perfect like that? But then again, I can't see, I'm seeing a digital image online, so I'm not really sure sometimes how brushstroke free they are. But kind of experiment with it, but do incorporate some water. That usually helps. You're probably just painting straight out of the tube and you're just getting too much streaking. The other thing that might be happening to you is you're touching it too much. I'm sorry. This is getting way too innuendo-y in here. I'm making up all kinds of words. I'm going to have the Leilani Joy book of made up words, right? But you may be over touching the area. I'm sorry. I do not know how to say this without it being so... It's getting late at night now, and I'm getting a little punchy. So, but anyways, if you keep passing over the same area and over and over and over again, acrylics dry really quickly. So if you keep doing that, you're actually going to start lifting some of the nearly dry paint, and that's going to give you a chunkier, funkier, streakier, strokier look. Okay. Anyways, so that's my 2 cents on that. Yeah. So anyways, if I think of some more techniques about that, I'll let you know, because it just, I know I strive for this all the time, and it's something that bugs me when I can't get it. But I don't know why I didn't say this, but part of the reason why I use spray painting techniques, because I love how flat that is, and it's awesome. Of course, I kind of have to make it work with regular acrylics, so I need to kind of keep my application as consistent as possible. So you might experiment with some masking and some spray painting too, if you want to kind of do something similar to this. Okay, my next question comes from Nanny Mouse, and her question is, if you would have time to paint, draw, whatever you'd like, what would it be? And would you sell it or keep it for yourself? You know what? I'm really lucky that I pretty much do get to paint whatever I want. It's kind of comes with the fine artist job. And I actually really enjoy having a prompt. So like when I got invited to be in this Barbie show, I was like, oh my God, like how, like I love the challenge of trying to do something in my own style. So I rarely actually feel like, oh my God, I just want to do what I want to do. I don't want to do the show theme, or I don't want to do something for a client. That doesn't really bother me too much, to be honest. I guess, like I said, I was always kind of like a student that enjoyed school. I was like nerdy like that. Like I just kind of appreciate an assignment, I guess, if that makes sense. So for this, like, it's cool because it's a prompt like Barbie, but that could be almost anything. I mean, she's done everything. She's had amazing fashion. She's been around for like 60 years almost. And so for me, it was like I get to paint her how I want. So I am painting what I want to paint. I mean, and hey, I can't knock the subject matter. It's awesome. I mean, this is my childhood realized. But other than that, I always have lots of ideas that I'd like to do. I still, one of the pieces I just haven't gotten around to is doing a Frida Kahlo tribute piece, because I love Frida, and I think she's so iconic. And man, talk about an artist that paints herself, okay? All us lady artists are always getting knocked like, are you painting yourself? And I'm like, well, you probably wouldn't say that to Frida, would you? I mean, that's all that girl painted was herself. So yeah, I don't know. There's tons of ideas in there, but honestly, I'm lucky enough to mostly get to do what I want to do. And I don't feel, I love to find, one of my original artworks, a forever home and a loving owner. And not just because I like to pay my rent and feed my guinea pigs, but also because, I don't know, there's something touching about someone connecting with something I've created. And I have canvas reproductions, I have prints of my favorite pieces, so a part of them still gets to kind of live with me forever. And yeah, so I don't know, I don't worry too much about like, oh, I would want to create a piece just for me to keep. I guess a less beauty pageant answer to this is like, I sometimes think I would love to just do something totally weird and outside my element, though. Is just like something I didn't have to worry about selling. I could just throw paint at a canvas and just see what comes out of it. I mean, I do love that idea sometimes of just getting completely Jackson Pollock and free about it. But, you know, maybe someday too. I certainly think that could even be incorporated into the work that I do, because I love abstract stuff. I love pouring techniques and abstract techniques and everything too. So there you have it. Okay, my next question comes from T with the Cheshire Cat. I love that name. Oh, they also had the question about blending acrylics and working on larger pieces with acrylics. Yeah, so I just answered that question. Try, maybe if you're working large, you might try the spray painting. Try bigger brushes. Also, you might want to mix, like, make sure you're mixing plenty of paint. If you're doing a custom color, make sure make a big tub of it so that you don't run out and you can really kind of just get it on there. And the other thing I didn't really mention earlier is that a lot of the blending, quote, blending I do, it's not blending so much as actually like thin glazes on top of each other. So as you can see, like in this painting, I already have a base, but I'm going to have some modeling in the hair and in the body, but it's not that I'm blending the one layer. It's actually several layers, and I do thin layers. And you know how you blend makeup out, or, you know, like if you have a highlight or a contour, you blend the edge so the edge is soft. I do the same thing in acrylic paint. So that way it looks like it's blended into the same layer, but it's actually a glaze on top, if that makes sense. You can also use flow aids and mediums to actually thin the pigment if you don't want to get too much water, because sometimes too much water will also kind of repel from your surface if you're not working on something absorbent. So keep that in mind too. All right, Iso J Art, what's your least favorite medium to work with? So I answered that already, so see above. Now I have a question from Art by Yaz. Any advice for classroom artist pressure? For example, feeling bad for creating art in front of others that say things like, wow, that's amazing. I wish I was good at drawing. How do you deal with comments like this? On a lighter note, have you ever played the game Sims, and do you like it? I love The Sims. Did I talk about The Sims last time? I feel like I mentioned The Sims before. I think I did. Anyways, I love The Sims. So actually look at my last paint on, because I think I talked about my love for The Sims. The weirdest thing, so I used to do some weird things with The Sims because I'm dark inside. I once made like an entire family and I killed them all, and I put their urns in the backyard so that it make a tombstone, and then the whole family like haunted the house because they can turn into ghosts, right? All right, camera strap. Stop it. So the whole family was haunting it, and then I had a new family move in, and the ghosts like kept scaring them all the time. Yeah, I did that, and I also once made a zoo out of all. This sounds terrible. Am I the only one that did this? Okay. I once made a zoo out of like all the like delivery people. So like when the mailman would come, I would pause the game and build walls around the mailman, and then I'd order a pizza, and the pizza guy would come, and then I would build a wall around the pizza man so they couldn't get out, and they're like, and so pretty soon I had like every single one of the like service people like in these little zoos. Okay. Anyways, that probably makes me sound like a psycho killer, but mostly I just used The Sims to like create my high school crushes that didn't know I had crushes on them, and marry them and have fantasy lives with them. Anyways, I hope they never watch my show and find out about this. No name namings. No name dropping. No name revealing. Okay, anyways. Art by Yaz. She wants to know if I have any advice for feeling bad for creating art in front of people. So they told you, wow, that's amazing. I wish I was good at drawing. So I'm a little bit confused about your question. So do you feel like embarrassed when people kind of like praise you or compliment you? Because I guess that's a good problem to have. Just say thank you. It's available on Etsy. Just kidding. A lot of artists we're private people. I like to say that I'm a humble person. Sometimes when people I meet in person and they're like, oh my gosh, you're really great and stuff. And I'm like, nah, I suck. So I relate to not always feeling like that about myself. But I would just say, be grateful. You can always say it's for sale, that you will draw for a fee, or maybe you could offer them some tips if they would like to improve their art as well. So just take it as a compliment. Most people really they mean well when they compliment your art. So if that's not answering your question, let me know, because I feel like I'm not totally sure about it. But yeah. Okay, Charlie Green 323. Hey girlie, hope you're well. I am well. I'm finally well now, because I've been sick for like, a week and a half, and I just wanted to like die. But now I finally feel better, even though I look like the undead. Okay. How can I improve my line work? That's a great question, and I don't think we've talked about that one. Line work is something that can really boost your professionalism and really make your drawings more dynamic. It's something I talk to my students a lot about, and we actually kind of have a section where we talk about this in more detail. But look to artists who do it really well. Comic artists are a great place to start. One of my favorite comic artists is Bruce Timm, and I use him as an example in my class for good line work because his line work is gorgeous, and the key to it is varying the weights, the thicknesses of the lines to create volume where you want it or tension where you want it. So you can make a flat line drawing kind of feel like it's rounding and feel like it's got volume just by using different thicknesses of line. So he's a great one to look at. I also, I'm kicking myself because I don't know where it was, but I took a comic book inking class in art school, which was one of my favorite classes actually. And we talked a lot about line work and how to even ink the art of someone else. We did an assignment which was really fun actually, where we swapped pencil art with another student and you had to ink their art. So you had to kind of keep the integrity of their line work and their strokes, but also enhance it by using inks. So that might be a good exercise. You know what, I'm going to put it here because I don't remember it off the top of my head, but there was a really great book. I think it was called Comic Book Inking. I'm not sure though, but I think it might be on, I'm sure it's probably on Amazon. And it was a really great book about exactly this and how to improve your line work and inking skills. And it actually even came with some like kind of like faded out comic pages that you could practice inking on and try different inking styles and different line weights and stuff. So that was really a good way to practice. Great question. Let me know if any of that helps you on your journey. Okay, next on our paint by number fun time party, we're going to, I'm going to do the purple areas, and I'm not sure which purple I want to use. I think maybe the dioxazine. How the hell do you say that? Dioxazine. Let's sound it out together. Diozine, I don't know. Dioxazine purple, I don't freaking know. Okay, next I've got one from Paint Stained Nando. What did you think of Valentina's elimination, and who do you think is going to win season 9 of RuPaul's Drag Race? I'd like to leave my mask on, please, RuPaul. Oh my god, I can't talk about it. Okay, so if you're not caught up on Drag Race, insert spoilers here. So definitely one of my favorite queens since day one, Valentina, was eliminated in a shocking lip sync for your life, and it was literally painful to watch. I was cringing so bad I almost like couldn't watch it. So she didn't know the words to the song, and if you're a longtime Drag Race fan like I am, that is a cardinal sin, and I just don't know what was going through her pretty little head. I just wanted to shake her, and I'm like, do something to fake it. Say watermelon banana over and over again or whatever. I know she's a young queen. I think she's only like, I don't even know, 23 or something. And I think she just kind of froze, panicked. It was really sad and hard for me to see, and at the sake of getting too nerdy, as I actually hadn't heard that song before either, so I do think it's been tricky that they've been throwing like more contemporary music at them this year, because they used to kind of do the classics and it's like, everybody knows the words to I Will Survive, so I've been listening to that song by Ariana Grande, and I'm like, oh my god, this song really is cute, and I've been dancing around my house. I'm like, this is what I would have done. Okay, sorry, I can't sing. But I'm like, hey, you know what? I should make a video. I'm going to make a YouTube video of my version of that lip sync and what I would have done and how I would not have sashayed away. Yeah, so I'm sad. I'm still kind of holding out hope that they might bring her back. You know, they love to do the shocking, like, bringing back one of the queens. Because I think she's super talented and I think she deserved to be there, but I don't know. She dropped the ball. She did. And I definitely don't believe all these people who are saying she was robbed. She wasn't robbed. She didn't know the words. That's part of the game. You don't know the words, you go home. Bye-bye. So she's adorable. I hope to see more of her in the future. All Stars, whatnot. But yep, sad. Sad, sad, sad. She was so cute. I loved her face. Actually, I'd love to paint her face. Maybe one of my next girls is basically going to have Valentina's face. Because she has the most beautiful face in or out of drag that I've ever freaking seen. And I'm insanely jealous. And I want to suck the youth out of her and put her face on my face. Okay, I'm coming across like a psycho killer today. I'm telling you about how I abused my Sims. I want to take Valentina's face. I'm sorry. It's just, maybe it's this lipstick. Something about this undead gray lipstick. It's bringing out the freaky psycho killer in me. Okay. Oh, and the second part of your question, paint stained Nando. I'm paint stained too. I've got paint all over myself. Who do you think is going to win? I think it's going to be Shea Coulee, and I'm totally okay with Shea Coulee. I love Shea Coulee. I think the top three, I'm going to call it now, are going to be Sasha, Trinity, and Shea, and I think that works for me because I love all of them, and I think they're all strong. Trinity rubbed me a little bit the wrong way right at first, but I have really grown to like and respect her, and you know, she's more of a show girly queen, which usually isn't my style. I usually like kind of the more Sharon Needles, Jinx Monsoon types. I like the artier, you know, kind of drag, but I don't know. She tells it like it is. She's very honest. She works very hard, and she's really good at what she does. So I can't really knock her for that. And I love Sasha Velour. I have for the first time ever watching Drag Race, I have a crush on a boy queen because I never really have before, and I'm like, Sasha Velour, I don't know, he's just a beautiful man. I don't know if it's like my 90s Billy Corgan like fantasies or something, but his skin is so pretty, his smile. And I love Sasha. I love her, how she paints herself. Her makeup is so pretty and artistic. And I'm really upset that I couldn't go see her because she was in San Francisco last week. And I was like, oh my God, I wish I didn't have to paint. And I felt yucky and I had a cold. And I'm like, I can't meet my beautiful Sasha how I am right now. So yeah, so there's a little bit more Drag Race gossip. Okay, I want to take a poll right now. How many of you guys have started watching Drag Race because I talk about it all the time? Because I would love to know if I have any Drag Race converts. Now you can watch it on regular TV on VH1, so you have no excuse not to be watching it. Or you can watch seasons 5 through 8 free on Prime, on Amazon Prime. So you have no excuse not to get into it. Okay, my next question this evening comes from Miss Creatures from Starlight. What's a painting idea you've always wanted to create but haven't gone around to making? Well, I think I just answered that for Nanny Mouse a little bit earlier. So yeah, you guys kind of had the same question. So yeah, I think definitely the Frida one is up there. And now maybe something featuring Valentina from RuPaul's Drag Race. I don't know. I have lots. I have lots and lots. I have so many pieces I would love to do. I just wish I could clone myself, I swear. I'd make one of me do my laundry, and one of me to bring me food, and one of me to just play video games all day. Okay, Dazzling Trash asks, do you have any idea or suggestions where this unicorn glitter rainbow hype comes from? It's getting out of control. Not my fault, okay? I like rainbow glitter unicorns, but I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's a trend. Actually, speaking of that, a very kind fellow artist who I'm a fan of, Sleepy Koi on Instagram, if you follow her, she alerted me that this freaking jerk stole my Lady Amalthea rainbow unicorn piece and was selling it without my permission on a website, and they hacked the image, like they cut out the background, and then they put this, it's almost so offensive that I can't even say. They put text over it that said crazy unicorn lady. And I'm just like, I don't know what's more offensive. The fact that you stole my art, the fact that you're selling it, or the fact that you wrote crazy unicorn lady on it. Because how dare you? Anyway, I've already gotten it taken down. But yeah, I don't really know. I think it's a lot of, I think it's kind of like a 90s flashback. Like the Lisa Frank movement is coming back. And I don't know. Couldn't tell you exactly, but I'm guilty. I have my fair share of it. I just supported a Kickstarter for this rainbow unicorn diffuser. It's like this fat unicorn with a little horn. It was actually one of those like Instagram ads that like popped up. I'm like, oh no, I gotta have that. I have to have it. So they got me. They got me on that for sure. So a pet peeve I have with acrylic paints is that some acrylic paints are like way more like thin and transparent than others. I don't know if that's just because of the color or I'm not really sure. And it could be, again, because this is a soft body versus a heavy body. So perhaps would have been better to have a heavy body for this particular color. But it like perfectly matches my limey green over there. But you'll see what happens when I try to use this color. So this is it over here straight out of the tube. And if I put it on this dark pink here, you can probably see that it's super, super transparent. It's very thin. And it would probably take me, I don't even know, forever to try and get that to be opaque. So, a little trick that I use in this situation, because the problem is that the background color is showing through too much, and the paint's just too thin and transparent. I'm going to, in this particular case, is mix this color with some white, and then it'll be a lighter color underneath, and then I'll be able to build the pure color on top of that. So you'll see here when I've got some white in the paint. So I mixed it with some heavy body white acrylic here. And see how that's going on a lot more opaque. So that's going to work out better in the long run, even though the value is a little bit too light. At least I can see it there on the board. Okay, so moving right along, I have time for a couple more questions, and I've got to get out of here and get back to watching trash TV and Lifetime movies for a couple of hours before I go to bed. I should be doing something more constructive, like listening to some educational documentaries or audiobooks, but for some reason, my current kick is just the stupidest Lifetime movies I can find. The stupider, the better. And I'm here alone most of the time painting. And I just listen to these movies and laugh at them and make commentary to myself all day. It's like Mystery Science Theater for one. And I'm just like, don't go down there. He's gonna get you. He's gonna kill you. And I can't help myself. So anyways, my next question comes from, it's Gabby T. How did illustration impact your life? I don't know. That feels like kind of like a deep question that I'm not sure if it has a deep answer. It certainly kept me entertained, that's for sure. I was constantly, as a child, I was constantly making my own illustrated books. And one of my favorite things to do was actually create, like, I would do these, I don't know, I probably talked about this before, but I would create these little synopsises and write them down or explain them to my parents. I'd be like, okay, so option 1 is about a little girl ballerina who has a unicorn Pegasus and her best friend is a sea monkey and whatever. And so I would explain these different scenarios to my parents. I would say, okay, choose A, B, or C. And then I would make a little book or illustration. Usually it was a little book because I really liked making books. So I'd actually do like a series of illustrations to go with my stories. And then I would give that to them as the final product of what they ordered. So I don't know. I was a bit of a strange child. So yeah, it was something I always had to go back to. Sorry about that. Okay. My husband's coming home from the gym, and he better be bringing me leftovers. That's all I gotta say about that. Because I haven't gotten to go to the gym lately. I've been eating like a hog. I've been eating my sorrows away because I've had to work so much. I know I need to take breaks and actually do some exercise so I don't have a stroke prematurely. But I haven't had time. I just keep shoving naughty food in my mouth to stay alive. What was I saying? Oh yeah. So I was never a bored or lonely child. So I would say that illustration and creating art was something for me that I always just felt entertained. I always had ideas. My mom was worried about me sometimes. I think she was like, "Why don't you call some little girlfriends to come over and play?" And I'm like, I'm happy. I'm making my comic. I mean, I wasn't friendless. I wasn't total loser, but I just had a few friends that I liked, and to this day are some of the only people that I like even now. I know. I mean, I love people. I have a very small circle of close friends because I tend to be a bit of a introverted extrovert. So anyways, my answer to your question is that it's something I've never been without, and it's been something I can escape with, and it brings me joy, which I guess is appropriate since is my actual given name is Leilani Joy. So yeah, cool. I wasn't sure I was going to answer that question at first, and then it kind of like came out, and I'm like, yeah, that's pretty accurate actually. So good one. All right, next I have a question from my dear friend Tracy E. Hi Tracy. Tracy E. Is a fabulous artist. You can check her out. Actually, her last name, I'm not sure actually how you say it. Erie? E-I-R-E? Tracy Erie. Hi, Leilani. So glad you're back. I am back and better than ever. Can you talk about the advantages of being in your art collective? What are the main benefits in your opinion? Are there benefits different if you're new to the art world? Thanks and big hugs. I love it. I love being in the collective for many reasons. Gosh, how long have I been with? I've been with the Apples for a while now, at least 4 years. I think maybe 4 years, because I think we just had our 5-year anniversary, and I think they'd been around about a year or so before they invited me to join. And it's great to have a small community of fellow professionals to bounce ideas off of. We can occasionally just rant to each other about things only other fine artists would understand. So we have a really nice kind of camaraderie, and all of us are from different places internationally. So it's actually really cool to kind of have connections. Anita, she just opened her own gallery in Scotland, which we're so proud of her. It's so amazing. It's beautiful. And so she's able to have some exposure for us and artists in Scotland, in Ireland, in Spain. So it's really been a great way to kind of get more worldwide exposure through connections that each of us kind of hook up. It's also just been a good motivator to give me a deadline each month. The auction kind of prompts me to get off my butt and be like, okay, I gotta do a new piece, so get it together. And we always have fun and challenging auction themes, so I enjoy that. Like I said, I'm kind of like an assignment type person, type A personality, so I like having a prompt every month, and I'm like, all right, what would I do with this? Like my Son of Man piece I did, I was like, this is kind of weird and different, but I'm gonna just throw it against the wall. It's kind of nice because since it's an auction, there isn't like a whole lot of pressure. Sometimes it lets me like experiment a little more than I regularly would. So I like that. It's also a great way to kind of combine our collectors together. And sometimes, you know, one of my collectors, they'll find another artist that they like and want to collect, and vice versa. So that's been really nice too, to kind of like find fellow collectors. We've had to adapt and change with the times, and lately we have been going through some of our own growing pains as a collective. Especially, like I said, I mean, it's great that like there's more and more collectives popping up, so everybody kind of has an opportunity, but it's also creating a certain amount of competition, which is hurting all of us in a way. But you know, that's life, that's the business, and I definitely get that. I don't blame anyone for it. But my only concern that I have for some of the other collectives, and some of them that do incorporate very new to the scene artists, is that they have auctions where they sell original artwork for really low prices. And the reason why that bothers me is that It confuses the general collector base and collector base. I just thought of Mass Effect. Sorry. Geek moment. But it confuses collectors because they start to think that that's what paintings of that caliber and size are worth. And sometimes these, sometimes newer artists to the scene, you know, they're just so happy to sell a piece that they didn't even consider that they spent, you know, 40 hours on a painting and they only got $100 or $200. So it kind of throws off the economic standpoint, because I try to be a little bit careful about how many hours I put into a auction piece, because I'm like, okay, if that goes for $100 and I did spend 3 full days on it, I mean, that's not a good hourly rate, you know what I mean? But for the most part, it's really great, and we've gotten some group shows together, which, you know, takes some of the legwork out of doing it on your own. And yeah, so it's awesome. We're gonna have, we always have shows going on, but we have one in New York coming up in the fall that I'm excited about. The theme is Borderlands. Not necessarily the game, but I'm thinking it might do something related to the game just to be weird, because I think it's supposed to mean like lands between, you know, like sort of fantasy themes, fairies and stuff, but I kind of want to just do something weird like from Borderlands the game. I don't know, we'll see. Okay, so I'm going to answer one more question and then I gotta dash out of here. And okay, I'll do a couple more because this one's quick. I have a question from Diamond. This is what inspires you to paint? What are your favorite types of references? I mean, I've answered this one like tons of times. It's probably the #1 question on my FAQ page, so I'll direct you over there. I'm inspired by everything, you know, music, movies, pop culture. I mean, I don't know. I just feel like it's something that, I don't know. I'm obviously inspired by women. So I'm not going to go too into depth with that one because I've answered that before. Okay, last question. Okay, I'll do two more because these are quick. Okay, No Tone Rydell. I just love dyeing my hair, and I'd like to ask if you have any other colors you'd like to dye in the future. Oh yeah, I know. I'm not, so right now it's actually like this like silver gray color, which is kind of what I intended all along, but it went like from yellow, orange, green to purple, and now it's finally kind of the color that I initially wanted, which is cool. But I've seen pink lately, and I don't know, I'm in a pink mode, but I'd really love to do like a rose pastel pink, so maybe that, I'd love to do that next. I'd also like to do just like a mermaid, like aqua kind of color, like a blue, very light blue, minty green. Yeah, so I'd like to do that. Okay, last question of the day is from Joan of Arc 001. Oh, we were chatting earlier about Carmen Sandiego. Oh, that's what her question's about. Hi, Leilani. I enjoyed watching shows from my childhood, like Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego? Thanks to YouTube. Have you ever seen your favorite shows from your childhood and onward? Oh gosh, I love to go back to my favorite childhood shows. So we were talking about this because Joan of Arc said that my Daughter of Woman piece reminded her a little bit of Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego. And I loved that show, but to date myself even further, I actually played the computer game a lot in school. Like, remember when you used to have like free time in the computer lab, like in elementary school? I don't know what they do nowadays, but when we got to play games like Oregon Trail or Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, and that was one of my favorites. I loved it because it was like a mystery solving game, and it came with like a book, so you could add up the clues to like figure out where in the world, you know, you're trying to track down Carmen Sandiego, because she's you know, she's a international spy. So I loved that a lot. I always go back, to answer your question though, I love to go back to my favorite childhood shows. I have some of them on DVD. I have some of my favorite childhood movies like Fern Gully, Unico, The Last Unicorn, to name a few. It's so fun and nostalgic to watch them again though. I love now that like things like Netflix and YouTube, like you can go back and watch your favorite shows. I have a question for any you Moonies out there, because I want to find, I might just buy the DVDs to be honest with you, but I want to find the English dub of Sailor Moon, the original English dub. I guess, was it Viz Media? I forget. Because there's a new... This is so nerdy and nitpicky, but Hulu has original Sailor Moon on there, but it's a redub. So they've actually redubbed it, and they call her Usagi now instead of Serena, which was in the other one. And I know she was kind of annoying before. I don't know, she's still kind of annoying in the redub, but I like the old dub. I don't like the new dub, and I don't like Darian's voice specifically, and I don't like that he calls her Bunhead. It was Meatball Head, not Bunhead. So like things like that irritate me, and I can't find it anywhere, and I'm having trouble finding the DVDs of it too, because they've re-released it with the new dub, and I'm like, I will not accept this, because I'm a purist. So if anyone knows where I can track that down, let me know. I have like I have the old ones, the old like Sailor Moon Super S and stuff on VHS, but I never had the actual show. So yeah. Okay, my mouth is dry, but can I fit one more in? Okay, one more. We can do it. I have no idea how long I've been going on today, so if I split this in 2 parts, that's why. Okay, Odd Knits Adventure. I love that name. I'm not an artist, but I'm a knitter, and I love watching your videos whilst knitting. So my question is, have you ever tried any crafting, paper cutting, or any such lark? I think I actually said, I don't know. So this is weird, because I think I've said before, like, get your knitting or whatever you're going to do. So that was aimed towards you. Yeah, I mean, I like lots of different crafting. I haven't done knitting. Of course I like paper cutting in a certain type of way. I recently did my lesson on Lifebook, which was a little more crafty for me. I got to do a collage like journal page, so I really enjoyed that. It's weird though. I would love to do more crafts, but it's like, since I do a type of craft in a way for a job, most of the time, like I said, when I'm am I losing my voice now? Maybe my throat's not all the way better. I better go. But I usually like to do kind of like less artsy things in my free time, like play video games, take a dance class, get outside, do stuff with actually see people other than my husband. I kind of live a life like Rapunzel, I'm not even gonna lie. And that's weird, because somebody said that, I don't know, someone said that, like, I can't remember. Well, there's a couple of connections I've had to Tangled, and someone said that my husband looked like the Flynn Rider. What's his name? Whatever. I haven't seen Tangled. God damn it! I need to go watch Tangled. But somebody said that that Brian reminded them of him. I basically kind of live locked up in a tower, painting and having food brought to me occasionally. And yeah, and we got engaged under lanterns floating, not over water like in the movie, but anyway. Okay, I'm on a tangent, but yes, I will let you know if I try any other crafting type projects. Never knew. Last year when I was planning my wedding, I did lots of crafting for that. I made all kinds of things because, you know, we were doing it on a budget, and plus I just had fun. My mom and I had so much fun practicing like flower arrangements and table setups and all that good stuff. Okay guys, well I gotta go dash out of here and yeah, go back to my trash TV Lifetime movies and making fun of them and talking to myself. But I will be back hopefully on another paint along very soon. I still have quite a bit of painting to do. We'll see if I can get back to it or not. You know, like I said, I love doing this, but sometimes it takes me, you know, I paint a little bit slower when I'm chatting at the same time. So we'll see if time allows for me to do some more Barbie work. If not, I will see you guys in an episode of Art Nouveau. My Barbie collection will be launching at Gallery 1988 LA on June 23rd. If you're in the LA area, I am going to be there for the reception. So I'm going to come down to LA. It's 7 to 9 p.m. at the gallery, and I'm excited. I have a little outfit, Barbie themed outfit planned out. So if you want to meet me, I'm going to be selling prints of all my Barbie works and the originals, of course. They will be limited editions, and you can only buy them through the gallery or from the gallery store. So yeah, okay, so I'll let you guys know more about that later. In the meantime, stay tuned to all my social medias, and I will see you guys super soon. If you created something, hashtag it Leilani Joy Look. Well, no, Leilani Look. That's my hashtag. I'll see if I can check it out. And as always, ask me a question below in the comments. I'll answer it on another episode, or ask me a question on my Instagram. I can find it there too. Okay, guys, I'll see you next time.